Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Lambeth Fostering webinar. I hope that you've been able to navigate the technology and can hear and can see me. So hopefully that's all good. I'm your host for tonight, for this evening event, and my name's Colin Bent. I'm one of the team managers in the fostering service in Lambeth, and I actually have responsibility for managing the social workers who support the foster carers once they're approved. Now, we're hoping that this evening is going to be a helpful event for you in helping you think about whether you want to start your fostering journey and hopefully start your fostering journey with Lambeth. So we have some presentations and some people who are going to talk about their experiences of fostering, and also an opportunity to ask questions towards the end of the session. You will have the opportunity to post questions into the chat area to the right hand side of your screen, and we'll try and answer as many questions as we can, but there will also be an opportunity to take questions from people live, so to speak. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is just again welcome you to the Lambeth Fostering webinar, and I'm going to hand over to one of my colleagues who's going to talk you through the process in relation to being assessed as a foster carer, criteria, and also some of the issues that we may need to consider when we're assessing you as a foster carer. Her name is Suzanne Olsen, and she's one of the recruitment assessment workers in the recruitment team in the Lambeth Fostering Service. So over to you, Suzanne.
Okay. My name is Suzanne. I'm going to be taking you through our slide presentation this evening. And I think this is a good place to start, this statement here. Our foster carers believe that children and young people growing up in Lambeth deserve to have everything they need to grow and thrive, no matter what their circumstances. What do we mean by the term fostering? Fostering means looking after someone else's child because their own parents are unable to. There are many reasons why a child cannot live with their own parents, and when that happens, the local council is asked to help by finding the child a home. You might have heard the expression, children looked after. This simply means children coming into the care of the local council. The council then asks people called foster carers to look after the children for a period of time. The role of a foster carer is many and varied and includes the list below. Fundamentally, foster carers provide day-to-day care in a safe and loving home to children and young people. Foster carers are mindful of the challenges children face after having been separated from their families. At the end of the day, it's not an easy time for a child or a young person when they first move into foster care. Foster carers promote growth and development of the child, particularly focusing on health and educational achievements. Encouraging children to maintain and develop an understanding of their origins, religion, and culture. Foster carers prepare young people to move into semi-independent accommodation by helping them learn the right life skills that they'll need. Foster carers work with Lambeth to adhere to Lambeth's policies, procedures, and guidance. Foster carers participate in all meetings and appointments relating to the child or the young person as required. Training and support of foster carers is very important to us in Lambeth, which is why we provide a wide range of training and development opportunities to our carers so they can be the best they can be and handle any situation they might encounter. Learning can be accessed in many ways via classroom settings, one-to-one with your supervising social worker, or online. Now, because of COVID, we're not currently running classroom-based development opportunities training sessions. But we do have a wide range of online training courses that our foster carers can access. And a key part of your training and support is the relationship that you build with your supervising social worker, whose role is to support your development as you progress through your journey as a foster carer. We offer out-of-hours support from the fostering service and the emergency duty team. We offer and run social activities for children and young people in your care. All of our foster carers are given membership to the Fostering Network, which is a national organisation, which some of you might be aware of. And also we have in Lambeth, we have something that we call the Lambeth Foster Care Association, which hopefully Robert can mention something about later. One of the social workers who's here this evening can talk a bit about later. The children who come into our care, they do so for different reasons. So we offer a range of fostering types of placement to meet the needs of the children. Once you're approved as a foster carer, we will try to arrange placements that match your interests. So some foster carers are interested in providing short-term care. Some are interested in long-term fostering and permanent care. Some foster carers provide respite care, respite to foster carers or respite to families who might need a break. We have remand care, which is working for young people who are involved in the criminal justice system. Many foster carers are keen to care for siblings if they've got the space and the room to do so. And many carers are interested in working with asylum-seeking young children. The needs of our service will change from time to time, depending on the demands placed on the service. And I'm going to ask Colin to say something about parent and child care, parent and child foster care placements. So I'll just hand over to Colin for a minute.
Thanks, Suzanne. Yeah, the thing that I just wanted to say in relation to parent-child placements is obviously we're wanting people to come forward to offer foster care for the range of kind of fostering type arrangements that Suzanne has just explained, but we're particularly interested in people who may be in a position to offer parent and child care. So that would be a situation where potentially we're looking at a could be mother, maybe a father, where it's been agreed that perhaps they may need to be living together in order to be assessed in relation to parenting skills and abilities, and we're asking foster carers to support that parent in relation to doing that. And that may at some point involve also providing some care to the child. So there may be parents who are 18 years and under, so very young parents, and there may be parents who are adults in their 20s. So we're also at the moment we're looking for people who can offer a range of fostering type situations, but particularly if they're in a position they have the space to think about offering something in terms of the parent and child arrangement. So obviously you need to have the level of space and the time to be able to support potentially an adult, as well as potentially looking after a small baby or supporting the parent to do that. So that's something that we're looking at the moment. So we'd be interested to hear from people who might be wanting to think about that particular area of fostering.
So just to bring this slide to a close, if you get in touch with us, we would be happy to discuss the different types of fostering with you a bit more fully, just so you can get your head around it. The journey to becoming an approved foster carer starts with step one, as all journeys do, and that is to make an inquiry with us, where we would have a telephone discussion with you about your interest in fostering and take down some basic details from you. Step two is we arrange a home visit. Now, because of COVID, the home visits are not face-to-face in your home. We're carrying those out virtually via video link. And the home visit gives us an opportunity to have a fuller conversation with you about your interest in fostering, the impact it might have on you and your family. It gives us an opportunity to get a feel for your home and to see the spare room that you might use for fostering. The next step is the Skills to Foster course. Now, Skills to Foster it's a 3-day course. Currently, we're running it as 4 half-day sessions. Skills to Foster is a preparation course for people considering fostering. It gives quite a rounded overview of all aspects of fostering. All of our applicants must attend the Skills to Foster course. Okay, the next step, step 4. We work with you to complete an assessment and write a report. We get to know you and your family. We carry out health and criminal records checks, and we ask you for references, all of which determines your suitability to foster. Step 5, you will attend our fostering panel. So the report The assessment report that the social worker writes is presented to the fostering panel, which includes a range of different people, independent people, social work professionals, children who have left foster care, and current foster carers. And their job is to ask you and your social worker questions about the assessment report, and their role is to make a decision and a recommendation about whether or not an individual should be approved as a foster carer. Step 6 is approval, where you become a foster carer. And following that, we make arrangements with you to accept your first foster placement, which brings us to the end of our presentation. So I would like to hand back to Colin.
Thanks, Susanna. Just to say, as I stated at the beginning of the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions in relation to that presentation and any other points that are raised during the webinar. What I'd like to do now is to hand over to another one of our colleagues within the fostering service, and her name is Marion Burt, and she's going to talk to you a bit more about one of the fostering types that was described by Suzanne, and that's long-term fostering.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Marianne Burt, and I'm a family finding social worker in the fostering recruitment and permanency team. It's my responsibility to search for permanent foster families where adoption is no longer an option, with the emphasis on long-term foster placement and permanent care. I would like to share boy A's journey with you. Prior to coming into care, boy A lived with his mother, who suffered poor mental health, and understandable, boy A is very worried for his mom. This meant that he struggled to settle into foster care, and eventually, after several placement breakdowns, he was moved into a residential placement. The residential placement worked closely with the local authority to help boy A to understand the reason why he came into care and become a child look after. After 6 months in placement, we noticed a significant improvement in boy A's behavior, which meant that all professionals involved could prepare him to move into a long-term foster placement. It was important for me to find a long-term foster family who are sensitive and have an understanding of boy A's complex needs, and also recognize boy A's progress and how hard he has worked to get to the point that I could actually start family finding for him. It was also important that the potential foster carers could demonstrate the capacity to work with the birth parents and extended family members, which include promoting contact. In the process to find a long-term foster family, I built up a profile of a child with the child's input and input of all professionals involved. The profile includes information about the child's personalities, hobbies, likes, dislikes, family background, health and education, and any information which is felt will help foster carers to make an informed decision. It is important that potential foster carers should have a clear and informative picture of the child. After circulating boys A profile, the family that put themselves forward with foster carers demonstrated their passion and understanding of the child's need. The child's social workers, residential carers, teachers and psychologists, and myself had several virtual meetings with these carers, whereby they were able to ensure that they would be able to meet boys A's need in the long term. The residential home played an active role throughout the process of getting boy A ready for moving into the long-term foster placement. You can just imagine how daunting this must be for a 9-year-old boy. So preparation is really important. After reviewing boys A progress, we introduced him virtually to his long-term foster carer. This was a very positive meeting, as boy A was able to ask the foster carers loads of questions. For example, do you have pets, and will I have McDonald's every day? That was a really cheeky question. And boy A is actually a really good cook and aimed to be a chef one day. So yeah, it was quite an appropriate question then. After this successful virtual meeting, we arranged for boy A to visit the foster carers at their house. And by this time, he was very exciting of moving to the placement. But before we moved him, the residential home arranged a farewell party, and this was also attended by his long-term foster carers. This event had a very positive effect on boy A, as he felt loved, cared for, and ready to move into his new family. We are in need for foster carers who are willing to make a long-term commitment to a child and young people until they move on to independence and beyond. It is important to never forget that all our children and young people in care have had a very difficult start in life, but that does not mean they don't have potential. They all have their own interesting and quirky personalities. Our children all deserve a family where they can be safe, loved and cared for, and where they are helped to reach their full potential. If you feel you can do it, please get in touch with us. So I think Lambeth is the best.
Okay, thank you very much, Marion, for that case study. Yes, so as Marion has stated, if long-term fostering is something that you think you'd like to consider, or you have more questions around that, please get in contact with us, and we will try and help you in terms of pushing you to a particular decision that you might want to think about in terms of long-term fostering. What we're wanting to do now is obviously the department, so the social workers have been speaking to you about the fostering, but we want you now to have an opportunity to hear from some of our carers. We have two carers who are going to be speaking in a moment. The first person I'm going to ask to talk about their experiences is our foster care called Joan Wilson, MBE. Now, Joan is somebody who is kind of known for offering the types of placements that Suzanne talked about in terms of a list, kind of the remand type fostering arrangements. So Joan is going to talk about her experiences as a foster carer in Lambeth for about 5 minutes. And I'm hoping that hearing it from the foster carers will kind of help to kind of bring alive some of the things that Suzanne and Marion have just been talking about. So Joan, over to you.
Okay. As Colin said, my name is Joan Wilson, MBE. I've been fostering for Lambeth for about 25 years. And this is something what I did not plan to do for this long. But by doing it, I enjoyed it so much. The reward, what I get from the children, I want to go on and on. You know, it's a challenging job. I'm not going to say it's not challenging, but at first it may be challenging, but getting to know that young person, the love and the care what you put in that young person, it's the job is just become so easy. And as I say, I foster over 100 children, and the whole ways say 85% of them, you know, who's still living in England. I think I lost two that died. One from natural sickness and one I can't remember. And a young man what I fostered for many years. It was my birthday a few days ago, and he wrote on social media, "Hi, Auntie Joan. Happy birthday. You're the most amazing, loving, kind, beautiful foster carer. I can go on about this lady." And he started to say, "May the Lord continue to bless you." And then he started to say about himself. He said, "As a young person in your care, I was made to feel loved. You have never treated me different from your biological children. When I'm excited, you care. When I'm sad, you cared. I can assure anyone that I am the man that I am today because of you. Each Christmas or my birthday, you put on a show for me. You showed love. You would invited my friends, my family member, and you turned a shy, vulnerable, introvert child into a confident and strong man who is determined to achieve the best. As you once said to me, reach for the sky, nothing is impossible." I started to work with, I wouldn't say the organization name, and I started to the job. I remember when he went on to say he used to come to Birmingham without even social services know, and you picked me up I used to do county lines. You were there for me. With the training you received, obviously, you know what to do. Now, I am doing the same job. Go to get the children who are doing county lines. And I say to them, I used to foster by a loving foster carer, and she stopped me from doing county line. You can do it. Now I will pass these things down to my children. And he went on and on. And I'm so proud of this young person to know that I was he's not a foster carer. He just work in such organization, which he go and bring our young people back to London from county lines. And I'm so proud of him, and I'm proud of me too, because I know I did a good job. I showed him the love he needs, a caring home. He didn't feel like he wasn't related to us. I said he was my child. Um, he said to me 3 years ago, you say to me, would you like to meet your real mother, your birth mother? And he said, I don't know. I encourage him. I bought him that ticket to that country. When he met his mom for the first time, he was saying lots of positive thing about being in care and whatever. And then he cooked them a nice West Indies meal. And they said, I would love to meet this lady one day. And I'm very proud of him. And I remember when I had the meeting with the mayor in Lambeth, and one of the IRO stand up and gave a speech and says, you remember, I think around 19 years ago, I I was doing the route to prison because he was in prison. And I said, I have to get on with it because I won't allow him to rot there. I'm going to stand up for him. And he got up and stand up and he said, I am that boy. So we can bring our children from down to up. We elevate these children. That's why we need good foster carers. We need foster carers who love themselves, love their children, and then we get the perfect children what we want in life. So I know we're going to find some brilliant foster carers because I'm looking myself. So just continue to get the best foster carers. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, that's why we ask you to do these webinars. So thank you very much. Now, obviously, we have another foster carer and would like to introduce, and his name is Robert Deftich, and he is the chair of the Lambeth Foster Care Association, as well as being a foster carer for Lambeth. So he has the ability to kind of talk about what it's like to be a foster carer, but also a bit more about the role of the Lambeth Foster Care Association for people who eventually become foster carers within Lambeth. So, Robert, I'd like to hand over to you.
Thank you for inviting me to be here tonight. I just very quickly in my background, I started my journey in 2012. I started off with an independent fostering agency. I had my very first placement. My partner and I had a 14-year-old young woman or girl who basically was the most missing looked after child. We had 12 police visits in the first 7 days. We learned a lot. We were baptized, but it didn't put us off. We've done a lot of short-term placements, siblings, etc. But more recently, we met a Lambeth child, age 7, in 2017, and decided that we wanted to be foster parents. We did an awful lot of work with him. He's still with us. He'll be 12 soon. And we went to panel to be considered as his permanent foster carers a couple of years ago, and we've started the journey towards adoption, and we'll still continue to do more foster caring. But I personally prefer the term foster parents, because at the end of the day, our children are part of our family. We see them as long-term. They'll always be in our lives. It's not something that we do just because it's a temporary option. If it's temporary occasionally, that's fine, but we generally find that those children become young adults, and they're always part of our lives, as Joan said. It's forever, and we're building up, our family. In terms of the Lambeth Foster Care Association, I took on that role because I feel that it's a great way of supporting other foster carers and foster parents, and working with the local authority to be able to work collaboratively so that we can achieve what's best for our children and young people, but also working with the local authority means that we can do things like having 6 weekly catch-up meetings. A group of foster carers with me, we organise support group meetings. There's a mentoring scheme. When it's possible, we do social events, but at the moment we're doing it mostly on Zoom, like everybody else. But we also have, I noticed with some other local authorities, friends that work for, that we at Lambeth have a very good fostering handbook, and it's kind of the Bible really, where it gives you the policies and processes and procedures and things that everybody works together to provide what's best for our young people. In addition to having your own support network, which I think every family should have, whether your birth children or not, you should build around your support group, because everybody needs a respite, everybody needs a break, but there's also lots of other benefits of that. But within Lambeth, I've noticed that over the years is that we've become very much a family, and we have a lot of informal support. And even though I don't live in Lambeth, I live in a neighbouring borough, I still feel very supported by the other foster carers, and we have our sort of formal setups, but we also have informal advice and support and so on. So I think that's all I wanted to say for now, but happy to take specific questions later.
Okay, Robert, thanks very much for your contribution, and again, Joan, thank you very much for your contribution. So we've come to the end of our kind of formal presentation and information giving, and now there's an opportunity to really respond to some of your questions or queries that you have in relation to the information that's been presented this evening. And we're starting by looking at some of the questions that have been posted in the chat. And what I'll do is, depending on the question, I'll pose that question and the answer to the people who have contributed to this webinar this evening. So could be Marianne, could be Suzanne, it could be Joan, or it could be Robert. So let's go through and see. So the first one, I think I will have a look at. Let's see. So can you foster if you don't own a house? I'm renting and hoping to move to a bigger place. So Suzanne, can I ask that you respond to this question?
Yes, happy to answer that. You can live in rented accommodation or own your own accommodation. Either works for us. As long as you've got a spare room available. If you're living in rented private, rented council, doesn't matter, you'd be welcome to apply to foster. That wouldn't bar you.
Thanks, Suzanne. Okay, going back through the questions again. How long does it typically take from the first inquiry until the first foster placement?
Happy to answer that. The assessment process, once an applicant submits an application form, the assessment process takes 4 to 6 months. And then when a person is approved, it takes about 10 days for all the paperwork and admin to be done. And then basically you're placed on our vacancy list for foster carers who were ready and able to take a placement. So really it's as long as a piece of string. Really, it could take days, or it could take a couple of weeks, depending on the needs coming through the front door, basically.
How much does fostering for Lambeth Council pay? Okay, so we have quite a competitive fostering allowance scheme here in Lambeth, and how it works is that foster carers receive allowance for the child, so that's to make sure that the child or young person is clothed and fed, is able to kind of engage in leisure activities, engage in school and transport for the things that they need to. And also there's a second element to that payment, and that's for the foster carers, and that's the foster carer payments. So the two elements together mean that actually on a weekly basis, foster carers receive a lump sum of money in order to provide for the child, but also a reward for the fact that they're engaging in, what can sometimes be a challenging task for themselves and taking children and young people into their home. Now, we've got information on our website about the rates, and you're welcome to go onto the website and have a look at that. And just to let you know that we've recently reviewed and revised our rates, and we're going to be increasing them again. We think in line with most of the local authorities and our neighbours, which we think is probably very competitive, perhaps more competitive than some of our local authorities. So again, if you're thinking that allowances may be an issue for you, then you can refer to our current rates on the website, but they will be increasing shortly.
The next question here is anonymous. It says, I have never had children, but still am interested in becoming a carer. Is that possible?
As a gay man, I can't have my own birth children, so the only way I could have a family was to either adopt or to foster, or foster parents. So yes is the answer. Yeah.
The next question is, can you keep in touch with children after they leave?
Oh yes, I keep in touch with my children. They never leave. Never leave. Yes, my oldest one gonna be 40 next in a few months. And oh yes, I'm his mother. Not by birth, but I'm his mother. So we keep in touch.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, can you foster if you don't own a house? I'm renting and hoping to move into a bigger place.
If the place you're renting has a spare room, yes, of course you can foster. That's the long and the short of it.
The next question we have is, do you get many baby placements? And do you have to have special skills to foster babies? Yes. In relation to referrals, there are dips and troughs, and sometimes there are lots of referrals where we're needing to place babies, and sometimes there aren't that many referrals. So it just depends on the circumstances and the situation for families within the community. But we are always looking to increase our fostering capacity. So yes, if there are people who are interested in caring for babies, we would of course welcome them to Lambeth. The reality is that I don't know that there's ever going to be a book that we say you can read and that will give you special skills in relation to looking after babies. Obviously, it's good to have some skills in that particular area if you've had previous parenting experience, but if not, that's not an issue. Certainly we offer training and support in relation to thinking about looking after smaller children and infants. So that shouldn't be something that we would suggest would say that we would not kind of consider you in relation to fostering. So if you're seriously thinking about that, because that's a specific area that you want to look at in terms of caring, then please make contact with us. Yes. Can you foster as a single person in full-time employment?
Yes, I can answer that question. Yes, you can be in full-time employment and still foster a child. That's not a problem. As you know, there are some services available, for instance, after school clubs and so on. So as long as the child is cared for until you can come home.
So how important is it for me to have access to the internet? Due to a terrible past experience, I am put off the idea. Well, I'll try and answer that one. Obviously, currently, a lot of the work, the communication that's happening is via the internet and various websites and these communication modes that we're using. So we would want to be in a position to be able to communicate with you in a number of ways, and clearly having access to the internet to be able to communicate would really be important. But we need to know a bit more about the circumstances that you're kind of alluding to in your question to understand whether that would be a barrier or an issue in relation to you. But it would be very much about your experience, really, because from our point of view, it's important that we're able to communicate with foster carers. But I think we'd need to know a bit more about your particular circumstances and what that might mean in relation to what you might be able to offer as a foster carer. So another question, how long do you typically foster a child for? And Marianne, can I ask you to answer that question?
Yes, how long are you typically foster a child? Well, that really depends. Of course, I'm doing long-term foster families, family finding. So in my role, I really would like you to care for this child up till 16 or even 18 or sometimes even up to 25 until independency. So it really depends on your circumstances.
So would fostering be classed as a second job? Well, I'll answer that question. And no, fostering at the moment is classed essentially as a voluntary undertaking, and so it's not seen as paid employment, and so wouldn't be classed as a second job in that particular respect, and doesn't have the same status as paid employees, for instance, like ourselves who work within the council. Okay, so another question we have is, would you match a child with me who was living in the same area?
The answer depends on the child's circumstances and any risks that might accompany, be associated with that child. But yes, we do place children in the same local area with the foster care that they came from, if it feels appropriate. But if it doesn't feel appropriate, we would not do that for the sake of the child or for the sake of the foster carer. So the bottom line is, what are the child's needs? What, if any, are there any risks or concerns? And then a decision is made to make a match based on that.
Okay, so the question that's been posted is in relation to bedroom space, I think, and the question is, I have a 7-year-old child, and would any foster child be able to share that particular bedroom space with my own child?
We ask all foster carers to have a spare bedroom for the foster child, which means that each foster child must have their own bedroom, their own privacy, their own space, and therefore the foster child can't share with the foster carer's birth children. The only time that sharing would be okay sometimes is if we've got a sibling group and they're the right age and the right gender to be sharing a bedroom, and that's the only time that children can share a bedroom.
Okay, so there's a few more questions that have come through. This question is, I'd love to foster. I work full-time, as does my partner, but I'm really keen to support a child parent or child as I have a spare room. Is parent-child fostering a good option? I'll answer that question. And I think that spare room, I think we need to have a bit more of a discussion about that, because what you're saying, two things, you would like to kind of foster, and actually, from what I've heard, the very little I've heard this evening about parent and child, that may be something I'd want to offer as well. Parent and child is quite specialised in terms of the responsibilities and the tasks that we ask of foster carers who are offering that type of resource. So we need to talk through a bit more in terms of your particular family circumstances, because it may be something that based on more discussion you may think, well, actually it's not parent-child, it's the other type of fostering that I'm interested in. So I'm sorry I'm being a bit vague, but I think it probably does need a bit more of an exploration in relation to that. There's another question. Do you need particular experience or training in order to foster children with special needs?
Yes, we've looked after quite a few children with special educational needs and some with disabilities, and I would say that you would always have to find out everything you can about the child before you agree to take care of that child. But there is a lot of training available, and definitely you would have to have training. I mean, I've learned a lot around autism. I've learned a lot about ADHD, sensory processing, etc. I mean, birth parents and birth families don't really have the luxury of having the training. They just, they get thrown into and they muck through, and then somehow they get through. But I think with all the training that is available, and all the training and support that we get, you are better equipped to be able to work with, and also you should be able to advocate and get services and provision. You've got to be confident to be able to get referrals for assessments if you need it, to work with speech and language therapists, and occupational therapists, and sometimes you've got to spend more time working with Senkos in schools and all sorts of things. But I mean, with the Lambeth Foster Carers Handbook, and with the support of the child social worker, who usually knows a child best before they come to you, and also with your own supporting social worker that we as carers and parents have, you've got quite a lot of people around you to be able to advise and support. And usually, always, is that you've got a pretty good, strong picture of what those needs are. And if you can't meet them straight away, or you're a little bit hesitant, then the support and the training's there. So I have to just very quickly with our child, I call him my son. He came to us age 7. He was in nappies. He had very little speech. He was in a very specialist setting. We could see some potential in him very quickly. We did home tutoring for 6 months. We got him into a mainstream school for the first time. He started to get an education. He's transitioned into secondary school now. And we've learned that, you know, with his autism and sensory processing and so on, it's more about how we adjust and we allow him his own time and his own space to do things. We've empowered and enabled him. So we've learned a lot in the journey, but we now are very incredibly proud that we know that he'll have caught up to his peers. He'll be a very high functioning, independent adult. He's got his own mind and his own identity. And we've worked very hard with all the professionals that have supported him and us, and he's come an incredible long way. And I think if you'd asked me in 2017, is he ever going to be, be able to go to school and be able to do, the national curriculum, I would have said, don't know, hope so. But now I can proudly say that with all the support we've had, we've been able to enable him to achieve a lot more than anyone would have, imagined for him. So definitely, I think you need the support, and also you need to keep that training up, because your parenting skills change as a child changes, and if you have multiple children, you've got to always be open to asking for help and getting that support that's always available. So hopefully I've answered the question.
Thank you, Robert. Just conscious of time now, and we still do have a few questions left on the post. Unfortunately, we may not be able to answer all of those questions. I think we might have time for maybe just one or two more, just quickly. So questions I can see. I am a committed Christian. Will that hinder me from fostering? Well, the answer to that is no. That won't. Obviously, we'd need to talk to you about what that commitment is and what that means in relation to fostering a child, but no, that wouldn't be an issue in relation to you fostering. What support would I receive if foster placement is not working out? Well, as soon as we're aware of situations where placements are what we call disrupting or breaking down, we would hold meetings with the child social worker, possibly their manager, and a manager from the fostering service to kind of look at what we can do to really stabilise that particular placement. So as soon as we're aware of those particular situations, we would want to kind of instigate that particular meeting and see what other agencies or support we can put in. Of course, you would have your own supervising social worker who you would alert in the first instance to any particular issues, and it's they that would communicate with the organisation to make sure that we can identify what might be best put in place to support you. So you're not on your own. Okay. If you're on universal credit, would being a carer affect my claim? Well, in relation to fostering allowances, they're not judged as income. So in the first instance, my response would be, no, that's not the case. And certainly that wouldn't bar you from pursuing your career in relation to fostering. We have a number of carers who are Lambeth carers at the moment who are on universal credit, and it doesn't impact on their credit. Okay. Is it possible to foster with a view to adopt? There is such a scheme, and Robert, I don't know if you very quickly just want to kind of say something about your situation.
No, absolutely. So as I said earlier, we started off fostering, then we went to permanency, and we are in the process of adopting the same child. And the other thing worth saying is that we got the support for the child, and we have a care package that is being agreed so that we can still access the support the child needs, but he's going to be permanently our adopted son, but we still get the support that he would have got as a foster child. So yeah, very much there is that option, and I think that's something to be encouraged very much.
I think we've got time for one question. I think I can see this question is, are you expected to facilitate contact with the birth family in your home? So are you expected to facilitate contact with the birth family in your home? In most situations, the contact that happens within situations happens at a contact centre. So there are particular venues within Lambeth where contact occurs, and it's managed and supervised in that particular way. There may be some situations depending on the arrangement for the family, and that will be based on assessments of risk and the relationships between the parents and other relatives and the child, that it may be more reasonable to expect foster carers to facilitate some contact within their home, but that would all be done on a discussion basis in relation to what the risks pose and what the issues are in relation to the family. So we wouldn't be putting you in situations where it would create difficulties for you in having that contact in your home. So there'd be thought through quite a lot before we'd made that particular decision. But yes, there may be some occasions where we would want, particularly probably with younger children, we'd want you to kind of think about perhaps having that in your home, because that's where the child is, and it would make sense for that contact to happen there. Okay, so we are going to have to unfortunately end our Q&A session. I just want to thank staff and the foster carers for their contributions. We do need to get some information from you, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be posting some information on the site now in relation to a survey that we'd like you to complete, and that hopefully is in your vision now. We're interested in your views on the presentation and the webinar this evening, but we're also interested to find out a little bit more about you and who you are in terms of your interest to help us in terms of our thinking about how we develop our recruitment processes. So please take the time to complete the survey, which will be sent to you shortly. I just want to thank you all for joining in for the webinar this evening, and please keep safe. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.